Jan, you had your second white today. Was there a point in the game you felt like you might have had some chances? It seemed like it petered out pretty quickly.
Well, I guess I could roughly say that opening ended up in my favor. Like I got some very slight edge, but it looked like it's going to be, let's say, long term. But then, this a5 move from Magnus is, I mean, positionally surely questionable, but seems like after some precise moves, Black can be close to equality. And d4 looks absolutely natural, and if I would realize earlier that after d4 and exchanges after bishop e6, I can't basically prevent d5. So after d5, Black has some decent counterplay even in the endgame. I would probably play it differently. Maybe, I don't know, some h3 or knight e3, just play it more slowly. But after bishop c8, d4 looks like very natural. So Black has all his pieces on onto the last rank. But yeah, somehow after bishop e6, it's really hard to do something. So I spent quite some time, and probably the best try I found a part of h3 was, I believe, knight d2 move. But even then, okay, I can only hope for some Marshall-like. Okay, we're playing anti-Marshall, but anyway, Marshall-like extra pawn against two bishops. So basically, extremely close to a draw anyway. So that was it.
Are you feeling any frustration about the fact that you haven't gotten going, so to speak, with the white pieces yet?
No, I mean, okay, absolutely no frustration. So I guess it was a clean game and a very logical one. And even in the end game, if I would be, given a couple of tempi, I could pose some problems in this, like, say, bishop endgame. But I mean, okay, especially once Black Kings enter c5 and f5 f4, there is never anything for white. This is the current status of the chess theory. Yeah, so it's hard to find some advantage.
Magnus, is there anything sexy you could say about today's game?
Well, I mean, there's a lot that I could say, but yeah, I generally agree that I was obviously making some fairly ugly moves, but it seems all to work out reasonably well. At least I couldn't see any concrete way to pose serious problems. So I think it was a reasonably logical game.
You seem incredibly comfortable with the black pieces so far in this match. Is that the correct sentiment?
I would say I wouldn't say very comfortable. I feel like I've been trying to equalize in both games without getting a lot of chances, but it's okay. It's fairly normal procedure in these matches.
Jan, the trouble of the white pieces, as you made it, is documented nowadays. It seems very difficult to get advantage with white, even after months of preparation. What are you going to need to do to change the trend?
No, that whatever am I going to do, the trend will remain the same. So that's not about my preparation or Magnus' preparation. That's about, let's say, the current theory status.
Magnus, what's going to be the difference maker? You guys seem to be punching it out right now on even terms.
Well, it's 3 games in. There's a lot of time to go, and as you saw yesterday, could easily have been a decisive result. So, it could. Obviously, for each game, the most likely result is a draw. I mean, there's just saying otherwise would be quite disingenuous. But any game could explode. Just not today.
One last question for you. The tension, people see draws and they think it's just draws, it's not so interesting, but you've been a part of these so many years. How does the tension grow with each draw?
Yeah, as you say, obviously, as the match goes along, with each draw, you get a bit more tense. But I would say so far, yeah, it's 3 games, and personally, I've been black in 2 of them, I'm fairly satisfied. And there's a lot of time to create something. Although obviously it's not ever going to be easy against a very strong opponent.
All right, if I may ask the journalists, you have, again, microphones at both sides of the room. Here.
So Jan, I wanted to ask you about one moment. So when you played Rookie 8, were you expecting Knight A5, which is sort of the main line? Or
You mean 95 instead of Rookie 8?
yes, was that something you were expecting, or was Rookie 8, was it a surprise?
Well, in some way, I expected everything. So, I guess after such long preparation, you more or less try to be familiar with most of the moves. But I'm sure there are also maybe some worthy tries which haven't been played yet. But yeah, okay, Rookie 8 is one of the pretty logical sidelines. Like this whole plan is very healthy. Rook 8, Bishop F8, H6. Yeah, so a little bit like the Zaitsev variation. Yeah, but I mean still very very nice for black.
And then to Magnus, I wanted to ask about this moment with H3. If Jan had played Knight D2, was your aim to play D5?
Yeah, as Jan mentioned, we'll after D5 pretty much by force get this ending with an extra pawn for white, which I thought was just a dead draw.
So even if the bishop, would come to C3 and pawn on A5, was your idea to reroute the bishop to A6 possibly, or did you think?
No, I mean I thought the bishop eventually after D5 everything gets taken. You take on A5, Rook A8, Bishop C7, Rook A4, Bishop goes to E5 and then C3, and then you go F6, King F7, H5. The bishops are just way too strong, I think.
So you would say that you were more than willing to go into this endgame, or did you consider perhaps playing another move to keep things going and maybe perhaps some chances?
I hadn't decided yet, but I had I had that in reserve, at least I thought. So there might have been other options, but it didn't feel realistic that I could actually play for something. So probably that's what I would have done.
And then I know on the first day I asked you about football player.
I'm sorry. We have to give all the journalists an opportunity. You can come back on the mic if there are other questions.
Sure.
Thank you.
Hi, Saravanan from ChessBase. Ian, in the official commentary, Vishy Anand was discussing about your opening strategy. To quote him, in every match, people have tried different strategies against Magnus, but so far they haven't cracked it. Ian's strategy seems to be very reasonable. His style has been classical. He's playing the Rilopers, the Catalan with black. For the moment, he is playing the main line and it's working for him. Was this your strategy? Would you agree with him? And do you think it's working for you?
No, but as Vishy said, it seems very reasonable for him. Yeah, so actually, I also hope it's reasonable. But I guess after 3 games, it's too early to discuss the strategy.
Mike Klein with Chess.com. This question is for Magnus Carlsen. Magnus, this is far from your first rodeo, and I know you have processes that have probably been established. So I'm wondering, how much are you trusting your team for in-match opening improvements, or are you still very hands-on in the middle of a match when looking for opening improvements?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. I don't wanna say too much, but it's always it's always a combination that obviously you have a good team that you trust, but I mean, at the end of the day, I'm making the decisions.
Hi, this is Jan from VST from Montenegro. I have a question for Jan about the move H3. How happy were you at that point to make that kind of a move? Can you walk us through what was going on in your head at that point?
No, I think I surely won't tell you what I was thinking. But in general, I found out that d5 is likely inevitable, and this was a way to improve my position before d5. So maybe I could capitalize on that if black would push d5 immediately, but I guess also d5 should work pretty nicely. But yeah, somehow after h3, c6, it's not such a great important tempi, but h3 could be useful in many lines. So I'm not getting mated on the first rank at least.
Thanks.
I am Rune from the global broadcasts of Chess24. The question is primarily for Magnus, and would also love to hear if Ian had a reaction. It appears that today's game was analyzed in an online database all the way up until move 20 2 days ago. If this was somebody from your team who forgot to make it private, how would you react?
I don't think. I don't think any of us can reasonably comment on that.
Well, I can only say that normally you try to switch up this online cloud option in your chess base when you analyze, to make sure no one uses let's say your fruitful analysis. But I mean, it could probably be a coincidence as well.
Okay, thank you.
Alexander Evstigneev, TV channel Russia 1. My question is for Jan, and I will ask in Russian. Ян, скажите, пожалуйста, 3 ничьих подряд, насколько для вас комфортна эта ситуация, насколько она вас устраивает, и после суточного вот этого перерыва, который предстоит, можно ли ждать изменения тактики игры, стратегии, ужесточения, может быть? Спасибо.
Ну, сложно сказать, вчера, на самом деле, были некоторые довольно серьезные шансы, хотя в целом даже вроде глубокий анализ показывает, что ничего прям форсированного за черных не было, да, то есть там совсем прям выигрыша. Вот, но, конечно, в принципе, всегда нацелен на максимально возможный результат, да, и, скажем так, вести 3-0, наверное, было бы лучше, чем сделать 3 ничьи, но надо понимать, что, в принципе, борьба очень вязкая, очень плотная, да, так что, вот, ну, опять же, играем как умеем. Вот, а получается, после выходного дня, ну, не знаю, надо сначала сыграть партию черными, потом партию белыми, то есть я, честно говоря, не загадываю, тут такая, шаг за шагом.
Спасибо. Thank you.
Ole Christian Strøm, VG Norway. Question for both. As far as I understand, there is a doping test today. Do you think you can get an advantage in chess by using any kind of doping?
Jan?
Well, but if you use a doping, you are getting banned from the event, yeah, so I mean, that's how it works. But also, I don't know about, let's say, any medicine which especially helps you to play chess, yeah, so, you know, hopefully, okay, we won't witness someone, you know, taking a headphone out of his ears, yeah, and or maybe, you know, the problem with this, let's say, chess doping, if someone cheating, you can never accuse him of playing too well until the headphone falls down onto the board, yeah, and this is not going to happen, I believe. So I really hope that, you know, everyone is fair.
Magnus?
I think there are probably experiments to be made. I mean, people use drugs to both prepare for and to do exams, for instance. I assume they could possibly help in chess as well. If at some point my level of chess drops drastically, I might start experimenting. But for now, I don't see the need.
Ulrich Stock from Die Zeit, Hamburg, Germany. Question to both. First to Magnus. Besides eating, sleeping, and drinking, what is the last non-chess related thing that you did in these days here?
That's a good question. I don't remember, but I can instead tell you about my plans, or the immediate plans after the game today. If it were not for the doping control, which sort of messes it up. The first step of the plan was Chelsea, Manchester United. Then the next step was Real Madrid, Sevilla, and then Golden State Clippers. And then I thought we'll kind of take it from there on the free day. Apart from that, I don't know.
Well, that's a nice plan, actually. Probably I'll stick to at least some part of it.
Mike Flanagan with chess.com. I guess I should just mention Gordon Hayward's coming on our broadcast, but that's neither here nor there. Question is mostly for Magnus. It's been a through line in your career that when it comes to sport versus science, you've actually wanted more of chess to come down on the side of sport, even if it's disadvantageous to you perhaps keeping your title. But do you still believe there should be more sport in chess? And if so, what are some measures that could be taken for the World Championship match?
I think there are many ways to play, but the most obvious ones, most obvious one is just shorten the time control. So, yeah.
To what?
Well, at least make it a mix of classical and rapid.
We'll take 2 more questions, please, before we conclude.
Hey, Jonathan Corbo from chess.com. This is for Magnus. Magnus mentioned his love of sports, some soccer as well as some basketball. In the off day, you said take it from there. Was there any plan to actually engage in some athletics on the off day? And this is actually also for Jan as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to depend on how I feel, but I will definitely try and be active tomorrow. As has been mentioned many times, now that we play 3 days in a row instead of 2, then it means there are more limitations on the amount of physical activity you can get. So I'll definitely be looking for that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, you got to do something apart of chess and eating and sleeping. So yeah, that's surely a part of your day there when it's a day off. But in general, I always I'm normally trying not to get tired even more than during a chess game. Yeah, so it should be something. Yeah.
And
pretty balanced.
And you guys have known each other for a very long time and played many games of chess against each other. Have you played any sports against each other over the time you've known each other?
Yeah, I think so. So I guess we played quite some football, in the same team and different teams. But that's normally what you do during some round robin tournaments. You in the rest day you go somewhere and play. Okay, they call it football.
Thank you.
Yes, for the last question. So draws are, of course, not a new thing in World Championship chess at all. We have gone like 5 years now without a decisive game in the classical portion. In those 5 years, there has been a huge influx of new chess fans who may not understand or appreciate why we have so many draws. Jan first, and then Magnus, if you could chime in afterwards. To these new new chess fans who may not understand, could you have a comment or a way of explanation of why we see so many draws?
Well, normally you need mistakes for a decisive result. So this probably could tell you that players are not making too many mistakes. Yeah, and if you play consistently, yeah, so you don't blunder too often at least. Yeah, in general, chess becomes quite a drawish game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that so much has been written and said about this. I really don't have a lot to add. We try.
Well, we are happy that you do. Thank you very much.
One more question, please.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a question for both. This is Theo 8 from Lichess. Stockfish 14 with NU seems to possess this game as 2 average center pawn loss versus 3 average center pawn loss, which in our assessment so far seems to have been the most accurate, according to Engines, game ever played in Chess World Championship history. Can I ask you both, perhaps starting with Magnus, how it feels to have played what seems to be one of the most accurate games to have been played so far in World Championship history, according to Engines?
Thank you very much. It feels great. It fills me with pride, but unfortunately only half a point on the score table.
Sure. And Jan?
Yeah, I must say it's quite a murky question before the doping test.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
One question for you, Magnus, from the FIDE Chess Twitter, asked by Vava Chess at Chess Vava. What will people remember about Magnus Carlsen 50 years from now?
I don't know. I think talking about legacy during a match is a rabbit hole I don't wanna go down. But hopefully he will be somebody who won a classical game in a World Championship match after the year 2016.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes our press conference. We will have our next game at 16:30, 2 days from now. Tomorrow's a rest day. Expect an exciting game 4. Thank you and good night.